The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, a novel by Yukio Mishima, translated by John Nathan. This incredibly short novel has a great deal of depth and resonance. I'm going to give a brief synopsis of what happens, and I'm going to do my utmost to not give too much of the plot away, difficult with a very, very short novel. Then I would like to discuss some theories that may or may not be applicable. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea is the story of three principal characters. There is Fusako. Fusako is a widowed mother, and she has a fashion boutique. What she does is she imports all the those fancy hoity-toity labels from England, particularly England, and a bit from France and from Italy, and she sells them to her wealthy Japanese customers. And Fusako, the mother, we get the sense that she's quite successful in her business ventures, however, also quite lonely since the death of her husband 5 years earlier. And then we have her 13-year-old son, Noboru. Noboru is not the typical 13-year-old Japanese young lad. Drink a bit of beer for this one. Noboru belongs to a collection of friends, perhaps we might even say a bit of a gang, and they are trying to teach themselves a cold, emotionless objectivity. We have to get rid of all of the emotions. We have to just turn off all of the empathy, and we have to look coldly, mechanically at the cruelties of this earth. On the flyleaf it says, "The boys, all from well-to-do families, train themselves in callousness, which they call objectivity, with absolutely no forgiveness and no lenience." Bit psychopathic, as we will quickly come to see. So that's Noboru, and our first glimpse of these two, Fusako, the mother, and Noboru, the young boy. Noboru discovers that if he pulls out the lower chest of drawers and he crawls into the crevice, that there is actually a hole in the wall that allows him to spy on his mother's room, which he does. He watches her in the evenings when she gets ready for bed. He watches his mother, and he unflinchingly looks at the reality of her life. It's weird. And we come to the third character, and his name is Ryuji. And Ryuji is an odd character who needs a bit of consideration, because he's a sailor, and he believes that he has a great destiny in store for him, that great things will happen in his life, or that he will accomplish great, meaningful things, and that one day this greatness that he pictures for himself, without any real clear definitions, just this concept of imaginary grandeur, I guess the way a lot of people imagine that, great things will happen to them. Well, exactly how? Exactly? Are you going to go to school? No, not school. Nothing like that, but I will do great things. That's his imagining, that he has these impossible things that he imagines he will do. Not impossible, but illusionary. Fusako meets Ryuji through a happy bit of emotional resonance. Two lonely people looking for love and companionship. They have a date. She invites him back to her house, and they go to bed together. And Fusako, even though she's quite an intellectual businesswoman, knows that this sailor will be departing in 2 days' time. And this, in the first half of the book, is quite a lot of the good drama, that Ryuji is going to be shipping out, but he's come into this family, this Fusako and Noboru. He's come in, and as Fusako's lover. Everyone is quite aware of it, even the son who was spying on them from the peephole. Yes, there are large questions in the first half of the book. What will happen? Is he going to be shipping out? Will he come back? Or is this the beginning of something much bigger and much more substantial? Will Ryuji change his life? Now, Noboru idolizes Ryuji because he thinks this sailor is living a really true, pure version of life. Noboru, even in his kind of psychotic, coldly calculating perspective, he thinks that this sailor has got it right. He's abandoning society. He's going out there wrestling with the storms and the waves and calling in and all these foreign destinations, and that this man is the real, pure version of what adulthood should look like, in accordance with Noboru and his little gang of psychopaths. However, Noboru can't help but be disappointed with a few of the things that Ryuji says to him. There's a scene where for some reason, Ryuji, he's got several hours to kill, and it's sweltering hot in Japan, as it, is even worse today. This book is set in Yokohama. So what he does is he decides to kind of take a little shower in a fountain in a park. He soaks himself, and he doesn't mind too much because he knows that in the heat he will soon dry off. He happens to run into Noboru and his little gang, and when he meets them, he says a couple of things that Noboru thinks are really, well, as the young people say today, are really cringe. That Noboru's high esteem for this man is really detracted because of these common platitudes that Ryuji says, and also the fact that he's walking around with a soaking wet shirt. This is tarnishing his image as this great romantic sailor. So in the second half of the book, Ryuji comes back and he has decided that he loves Fusako, and he asks her to get married. And they decide that it would be a good match and that Ryuji is going to come into this family. He will be Noboru's father, and Noboru is going to have to accept this man as his new father. Noboru, according to his ideology of this little 13-year-old gang, there is nothing as hypocritical. The worst example of humanity is a father. This is absolutely the worst thing you could ever become. And one of the reasons why they are so much against society at large is because so many men become fathers, and in their minds, in the minds of these children, that is the problem with the world. It is run enormous collection of fathers who are ruling the world and ruining it because basically their stupidity and their hypocrisy. Let me read you this little bit here where, the gang leader is talking about how he feels about fathers generally. It's really quite good. Let me tell you about my vacation. On this trip we took, I was rubbing noses with my folks every day from morning to night, for the first time in quite a while. Fathers. Just think about it for a minute. They're enough to make you puke. Fathers are evil itself, laden with everything ugly in man. There is no such thing as a good father because the role itself is bad. Strict fathers, soft fathers, nice, moderate fathers, one is as bad as the other. They stand in the way of our progress while they try to burden us with their inferiority complexes and their unrealized aspirations and their resentments and their ideals and the weaknesses they've never told anyone about and their sins and their sweeter than honey dreams and the maxims they've never had the courage to live by. They'd like to unload all of this silly crap on us, all of it. Even the most neglectful fathers like mine are no different. Their consciences hurt them because they've never paid any attention to their children, and they want the kids to understand just how bad the pain is, to sympathize. On New Year's Day, we went to Arashiyama in Kyoto, and as we were crossing the Bridge of Moons, I asked my old man a question. Dad, is there any purpose in life? You see what I'm getting at, don't you? What I really meant, Father, can you give me one single reason why you go on living? Wouldn't it be better to just fade away as quickly as possible? But a first-class insinuation never reaches a man like that. He just looked surprised and his eyes bugged and he stared at me. I hate that kind of ridiculous adult surprise. And when he finally answered, what do you think he said? Son, nobody is going to provide you with a purpose in life. You've got to make one for yourself. How's that for a stupid, hackneyed moral? He just pressed a button and out came the things that fathers are supposed to say. And did you ever look at a father's eyes at a time like that? They're suspicious of anything creative, anxious to whittle the world down into something puny that they can handle. A father is a reality-concealing machine. A machine for dishing up lies to kids, and that isn't even the worst of it. Secretly, he believes that he represents reality. Fathers, public enemy number one. So based on this, we have Fusako, who is accepting this man to be her husband, and she's welcoming him into her business. She wants him to come into the store and to run it as a team, which Ryuji accepts. You know, he needs to make a new life for himself after giving up being a sailor, and this is an opportunity for him. Noboru cannot accept that this man he idolized for a time, you know, as this rough, individualistic ideal of manhood, has suddenly left all that, retired from the life of a exciting sailor, and now has become the one thing he and his gang hate the most. He's become a father. This leads to the climax of the novel, you know, the main confrontation, because we have these three principal characters, and I think the mother is the one who's easiest to define her role. She represents this Japanese idea of embracing the West, embracing this Western consumerism, making a life as a profitable businesswoman. This is a very westernized character. She's very adept at the job that she does. She knows about the different fashion houses in Europe. She's ordering. She's got a very select clientele. She's really on the top of her game when it comes to being a profitable, boutique proprietress. That's the fancy word I'm looking for. On all of the other ideas about this book, I've seen that a lot of people think that Ryuji represents this classical image of Japanese manhood, adventuring, romantic idea of what it means to be this classic Japanese spirit, and that Noboru, with his cold, calculating mentality and no emotions, no regret, just this really hard, mechanical way of seeing the world, that he represents the modern Japanese after World War II, this kind of blighted spirit of the Japanese nation. But I don't see it that way. I have, as far as I'm aware, I have a different idea from the one that I've seen in other reviews. Early in the book, this gang of youths, they get a cat and they kill it quite mercilessly. They don't just kill it, they eviscerate it, really gory. It is not a short description. It goes on for quite a few pages. It was a bit surprising for me that we got so much viscera in this relatively short novel. It really left me wondering if it were not somewhat gratuitous, this very detailed description of taking a cat apart. Like, if you love cats, I don't think you will I don't think you will get past page 30 of this novel. One of the reasons why they do this is to prove to themselves that they are just as cold and emotionless as they are training themselves to be. In this instance, it's Noboru's obligation to kill this cat, smashes its head against something firm. This is like an initiation into this gang. It shows the leader that they are as cold as they say that they are. They really dwell on the death of this animal, and they are looking at it carefully, exactly, studying the grotesqueries of this ripped apart animal. Does that remind you of anything? Have you ever heard of anyone in history who spent time meditating on death as a way of building a resistance to the fear of death? Because that is what I felt the children were doing, is that they were trying to inoculate themselves against the fear of death and weakness so as to make them, stronger human beings. To me, that sounded very much like the samurai code of morality. Every day, a samurai should spend some time meditating on death and what it will feel like to be in the midst of death on the battlefield, to dwell carefully, to think about what their death will look like, so as they will not be afraid when they are in that situation. They will not show any fear, they will not show any hesitation. They will look at it and say, yes, here is death, but I must continue with my attack, and I must strike down as many of these opponents as I can, even though death is certain. Someone who is full of fear, they will hesitate, they might run away, they might become cowardly. But to meditate on death, as the samurai were said to do, was a way of curing this fear. And that is what I thought about in regards to these children, this young gang, is that they were the ones who were showing the samurai obsession with death so as to eliminate fear. So that is what they were trying to do. They're trying to steel themselves in the same way that the samurai were. And that Noboru, or sorry, not Noboru, Ryuji, the sailor, I didn't see him as this romantic figure. I thought he was, well, filled with illusions. He's not a great man. He's not a particularly intelligent man. He's not a particularly brave man. In fact, he's a bit of a dreamer. He believes he's got this great destiny in store for him, but also, like, he listens to this sailor music on the radio, and he learns the music, and he sings these songs to himself. Like, does that sound to you like the hallmark of a really great world-changing man? He has this weird romantic side. Many times throughout the novel, he listening to his favorite songs on the radio, and then a couple of times he sings them to other people. And I think in both cases, Fusako is really quite shocked at how strange it is that this sailor is singing the song to her. She takes it in a positive way, and Noboru, when he hears Ryuji singing, he just, like, that is, like, no, that just completely ruins his feelings about this man. Like, what are you doing? You're making a complete ass of yourself. Men don't go around singing these songs from the radio. Like, you're a sailor, man. Come on. Don't sing. So the way I see it is that Ryuji represents this unrealistic Japanese idea that everything's going to be fine, everything's going to work out. Great things are going to happen to me. I don't know how they're going to happen, and I'm not really doing anything to make them happen, but I think something great is going to happen to me. Well, you know, that person is living in a fantasy world. So that is my image of this. The children are representing this traditional samurai Japanese archetype, and that Ryuji is representing, you know, a feckless, indeterminate kind of, he doesn't have any real idea of what his destiny will be. He's just sort of following his whims. You know, the whim that, yes, okay, he's a sailor and he saved a lot of money. What has it got him after so many years? He meets this woman, they go to bed together, and suddenly he wants, you know, they decide to get married and make a happy new family. You know, all right, Noboru, say hello to your new dad. Call him Dad. Don't call him Ryuji anymore. Kind of forget he was ever a sailor, because now he's your father. And Noboru is just, you know, he's disgusted. His gang, they hate the fathers. And also, I think if you consider Yukio Mishima's politics, he was, is it fair to say that he was fanatically right-wing? He wanted to return to a classic idea of Japan, rather unrealistically. Because I was considering, it's a little bit difficult to have the younger generation as the samurai and the older generation as this undecided. He doesn't carve out destiny with his own motivation. He lets destiny just happen to him. So how can we relegate this younger characters as the samurai and the older character as sort of a more childish image? Because I think that is what Yukio Mishima was hoping for the younger generation, that they would stop being this on the fence, everything's going to be all right, foolishly optimistic generation, and that he was hoping that the younger generation would develop some more of that samurai mentality. So, and that would be the future of Japan, that these cold, mechanical psychopaths would be the generation that got Japan out of the slump that it was in after the Second World War. So that's my theory regarding this novel. It is contrary to most of the theories you're going to see on YouTube, but that's my theory, and I think it's pretty good, and I'm a little bit proud that I came up with it. I highly recommend this novel. It's very, very, very short, although not to any animal lovers, especially if you love cats. No, just keep away, please. Trust me on this one. That was one other thing. Was it gratuitous, this destruction of the cat? It went on for pages in gross graphic detail. But then, a few chapters later, there was this other scene that also went on for many, many pages. It was the scene of Ryuji's ship sailing away from Yokohama, and how Fusako and Noboru, they went to see him off, and like these long, detailed passages of this huge ship leaving the harbor. And like those passages were just amazing and beautiful, and this awe-inspiring, picturesque moments of this huge ship that is suddenly leaving with this man on board that these two characters love. That was really fantastic. And I found that really, that scene of the ship leaving worked as a real countermeasure against the horrifying scenes with the cat. Wonderful book. a lot of consideration in this book. I think there's really a lot of things you can come up with, and let me know in the comments below if you think my theory's got some weight to it. I think it's pretty good. I've got too much of that samurai ideology in my mind from the recent books that I've been reading. So please, really give this book a try. Unfortunately, no book lottery today because that's a book from the library and I can't send that one to you. So what I'm going to do, write to me at grantlovesbooks@gmail.com. If you're someone who writes to me fairly quickly, I'll send you a copy of my magazine, The Friend from Budapest. If you're quick, I will send you a copy for free, just because you watched all the way to the end of the video. The first 3 people who write, well, you know, write me a nice email. Maybe say something nice about my curly hair or my nice tie. Thank you very much, everyone. Don't read this one if you love cats.
Dick.